In this video, we will talk about what a theory is. This video is based on the book that we're using for our course. This is Educational Administration Concepts and Practices, published in 2011 by Lunenburg and Ornstein, and published by Cengage Learning. I think the later editions are published by Sage, but this edition is still pretty good. So we will talk about what a theory is, how theory and research are related, and what are the uses of theory. Okay. So a best criterion of evaluating a maturity of a discipline or a profession is whether or not it has a solid theoretical base, right? So a really advanced field will have a lot of theory, which is developed over time and tested and tried. So educational administration is a social science that actually has a very solid theoretical base. It developed since 1950s, yes, and by now we have a lot of theories and a lot of empirical evidence that has tested and developed those theories further. Okay, and in general, educational administration is a field that uses theory very extensively to do things like explaining and predicting phenomena in educational organizations. In general, a theory is an organized body of interrelated concepts, assumptions, and generalizations, right? So you see here words like concepts. I think that's pretty clear. Assumption is something which is often, it could be explicit or implicit, but it really is ideas behind the propositions of a theory, right? And all of those things together, they are interrelated, and they systematically, it's important that there's this word systematically. Without that kind of systematic element, it's just a bunch of concepts and ideas, right? But when they are together, systematically explain and predict phenomena, then we have a theory, right? And one thing that's important to understand is that theories can be very different, right? Some theories are very simple. They are very simple generalizations of the real, some phenomena in the real world, right? Other theories are really, really complex set of laws, and law is a very strong word for a social science, right? My personal view is we don't have laws because humans are not always predictable. But there are some things that could be called laws in the social sciences, right? And there are theories that have more than one law, and they explain those sets of laws in a quite complex way, right? So some theories will be simpler, others will be much more complex. Also, theories could be extremely philosophical, right? Requiring a lot of effort to figure out, and they could be pretty scientific, right? That means they are more like closer to the hard sciences, right? Like physics or chemistry, right? They really sound, and they sound scientific, more scientific rather than philosophical. And so and this is just some examples of what kind of theories are out there. Okay, but all of them are valuable as long as they are, especially as long as they allow us systematically explain, and very important for educational administration, predict phenomena in educational organizations. Okay. So, how are theory and research related? Well, primarily, theories, they guide researchers in what to look for, right? So once you, as a researcher, start studying something, well, there are a ton of things you could be looking at, right? And you could waste a lot of your time and effort studying something irrelevant, right? When you start with a theory, right, you already know what to look for, and you know what things are not as important to look for. Okay, and really, without a theory, researchers may be nearly blind to to what they are researching, really, because they do not see that you cannot really see what you do not conceptualize, and you conceptualize things based on a theory, right? So also, without a theory, often it's impossible to use a scientific method, right? um, we know, let's quickly revise what a scientific method is in order to highlight the role of theory in it, right? So if you remember, you begin the scientific method consists of 4 stages, and the first is to specify a research problem, right? Here probably, well, here already you could start with a theory, right? Or you could start from practice. If you have some problem and you want to research it, that's possible, right? But even here you can start with a theory, right? The second step is to formulate hypothesis, and here really you wanna use theory, right? You can use observation, perhaps experience, but the best thing is to do a literature review and really use a theory to guide you, um, to guide what is possible in this context regarding this research problem, right? Next, what you do is you develop research design to test hypotheses which are based on theory, right? And after that, you conduct research. You collect your data, analyze it, and interpret findings, right? So you can see here that very often you might not be able even to specify a research problem without a theory, because you may not see what is important or what to look for, right? And it might be super hard to formulate hypotheses, right? If again you don't know how to conceptualize what you are researching, right? And often theory helps you to really select the best research design to test your hypothesis, and really to even to conduct research, because when you are collecting data you have to know what's important for your theory, right? When you are analyzing and interpreting findings, you need to have those concepts in your head, those things that you're studying. So really theory kind of ties everything together, and is essential in this what we call scientific method. Note that this scientific method is really more quite positivistic and really goes well with what we call quantitative research. It is still possible in qualitative research, but it is, I don't think it's not that dominant in qualitative research, but it's also, I've seen qualitative research that follows this kind of method, right? Um, Sometimes we could do what's called grounded research, right? These are most often case studies and often include qualitative components here. So, in some cases, we might collect, in cases when there is no theory about something, right? Then we might go and collect data first, then look at all that data that we collect. We would need a lot of data, mostly, very often, and then based on that collected data, we could develop a theory. But after that, we have to test that theory. And in testing the theory, we go back to the scientific method, right? We again specify a problem, formulate hypothesis, and develop research design and conduct our research. So grounded theory is just, it's useful to know that there is this approach. Because sometimes it's possible that about certain things we don't yet have reliable theories that allow us to understand and predict phenomena. Okay, so All this is important to understand, because in this course, in the course TFL 615, Educational Administration and Entrepreneurship, we will study a lot of theories. Okay, really, educational administration is has has a goal of introducing you to a lot of theories of educational administration, in order to give you, many different lens, you could say, or ways of thinking, right? Uh, Often about one and the same thing, right? Why it is important? Um, because it is important to have different lenses. The more lenses, the more ways of thinking you have about different concepts, the broader understanding of those things you have, right? And as we discuss all these theories, we will also think about how they apply to educational organizations of which you are part of. Maybe, at least as a student, perhaps some of you already work somewhere, right? Or just know about, maybe you had an internship, or you interacted in some way with an educational organization. So it's going to be fun. So this is kind of theoretical and applied kind of course. And really, it's important, therefore, to understand what a theory is and the relationship between theory and research. So let's talk about some uses of a theory, right? Of theories, or of theory in general. Perhaps you noticed, or you just remember from your experience, that school administrators, I would even say perhaps even teachers, right? They tend to prefer practical prescriptions, right? They say, hey, we don't want theories. Who cares about theories? Give us practical, uh, you know, advice. Tell us what to do, right? Here's a problem I have. Tell me what to do with it, right? And one thing that they tend to forget is that any practical prescription, right, any recommendation, are at least to some extent based on a theory. Okay, they might actually, after just a very long and difficult process of brainstorming, come up with something that they think, hey, this is really cool, without realizing that there is a theory about that already. Maybe if they knew that theory, that the process of you know solving a certain issue could be just quicker and easier, right? Let's look at an example here. So imagine that a school principal is about to make a very difficult and important decision, right? And instead of making that decision on his or her own, she decides to include teachers and her other colleagues in making this important decision, right? So they come together, discuss all of the possible solutions, and they make that decision together, right? So without really knowing about that, this school principal is using uh, a theory called participatory decision making. Okay, this is a theory that argues that if teachers, parents, and community members, right, if they take active part in decision making, or in general in school activities, that active participation will lead to better school performance, right? So yes, that's this is what often happens. Um, Many of pretty much every practical recommendation is usually rooted in theory. Okay, so here's another use of theory that I hope will convince you that this course, although I said we're going to study a lot of theories, really what you're going to do is really study those ways of thinking, ways of doing things, in practice. And knowing those theories and having those various lenses is going to immensely help you in your practical careers in school administration. All right. there are other uses of theory, right? Theories, they provide guiding framework, um, guiding frameworks for understanding, predicting, and actually controlling behavior in organizations, right? So I think those three words, understanding, predicting, and controlling, are just like, they are they're loved by school administrations, right? So these are the three things we would love to do, and we would love to do better, right, in any context. So theories help doing so. Theories also contribute to producing new knowledge, right? They advance what we know in a discipline. And here are six functions of theories that this author, Van Dalen, lists. And I think it's useful to also remember this, to know the six functions. So they allow us to identify relevant phenomena. Again, when you have a theory, you know what things are important, right? And what you want to look at. Sometimes we choose what to focus on based if we have some theory supporting our actions, right? The second thing is classifying phenomena. Once you have some sort of way of thinking about, especially if you have more than one ways of thinking, you can quickly classify what's going on around you, and that might be super useful, especially when you are pressed for time or resources, right? The next thing is formulating constructs, right? So you can actually name those constructs and describe them using a theory. The fourth thing is summarizing phenomena, right? Using a theory, you can quickly synthesize what's going on, simplify what's going on, and model and probably better understand and predict those things, right? And another function is predicting phenomena, right? Um, uh, our book gives you an example of, I think, if I remember correctly, Abraham Maslow's pyramid, right? And if you know that pyramid, you can predict, what stage a person might be at, and you can actually predict what kind of behavior you could expect from this or that person, right? Finally, clearly, theories allow us to they reveal needed research. They show us what else we don't know, and they help us to study those things. So that's it for today about theories, and see you in the next video.